Hey guys, Carrie Run for Team Wolf, Season 5, Episode 13, Codominance, and I was very interested in this episode, to say the least. Like I said, last week's episode was very convoluted. I thought that episode was honestly kind of a mess, really it was. There was way too much going on, and because of that, I thought this week's episode was a lot better. I definitely enjoyed this episode a lot more. I thought there was a lot more focus on things that we need to focus on, and I also felt like the Theo character was a bit more interesting this episode. Not that he was bad here, but not that he's been bad, but I do feel he's kind of just been written as another villain. And here, definitely, I think there was some more interesting developments to his plot that we'll definitely get into. But let's just get into this episode. Overall, I really loved it. One of my favorites this season, and let's just get into it. So, the biggest thing with this episode, of course, had to do with Kira, which it was awesome to see Arden show again because, she's so great in that role. It was great to see her again. She's facing off against the skinwalkers. She's taking on 4 of them all on her own and is temporarily blinded, causing the skinwalkers to gain the upper hand. A spear is sent through her shoulders, and the skinwalkers tell Kira's mom that she is not afraid of them. She's afraid of herself, and Kira's mother asks if they can help her, and they said they will try, but if they can't, she will stay and become one of them forever. So very quickly, we're getting a lot of exposition here, but we pretty much know what's going on, that she has to, go against these skinwalkers, and if she doesn't fight them and she's not successful, she's going to become one of them. So I was very interested in seeing really what was going to happen there, and we see Stiles is working on Roscoe, his Jeep, and Scott is racing down the stairs but stops in his tracks when he sees Liam, and obviously things are very awkward right now between Scott and Liam. Now I have to say, the way they're handling Scott and Liam, I'm a fan of, because with Scott and Stiles, the thing last week, the reason I was not as big as a fan of it, and I think you guys might agree with me, is that they wrote Scott and Stiles. It seemed that these two, they were going to have this huge fight, and they weren't going to be friends anymore, and everything was going to change, and they weren't going to be friends anymore. But now they're right back. They got right back into it. They're now best friends again, and it seems like nothing really has changed there. Scott and Liam, however, have a lot more animosity towards each other, and they have a lot more to deal with. So I think what I wanted Scott and Stiles to go through is pretty much what Scott and Liam are going to go through, which I think makes a little bit more sense, because Scott and Stiles didn't try to kill each other. So Liam tells him that one of the Chimeras are back and Theo's their leader. Scott brushes everything off until Theo tells him that Hayden is one of the Chimeras, and Scott's relieved to know that Hayden's okay, and because, he didn't know that Hayden was alive and well, so he tells Liam about his plans to help Malia, and Liam wants to tag along, but Scott tells him he can't do anything to help, and Stiles asks Scott what Liam wanted, and Scott tells him that Liam wanted to help, but he's hesitant because of the fight, and I like seeing that Liam really wants to get back into it. He wants to be part of Scott's pack. He wants to be able to fight, and he wants him to give him something to do. But Scott just doesn't really know if he can trust Liam right now. The fact that, his ex-girl, sort of whatever they are, I can't really tell what Liam and Hayden are right now. I don't know if they're girlfriend and boyfriend. I don't know if they're just kind of, it's complicated. That's what I'm going to say. It's complicated between those two right now. But Scott doesn't really know if Liam is trustworthy enough. So I like that Scott doesn't really know, but Stiles asks Scott what Liam wants, and Scott tells him that Liam wants to help, but he's hesitant because of the fight, and Stiles advises Scott to let Liam help. He starts up Roscoe, and now Roscoe's okay. So Stiles has now gotten his father back, he's gotten Scott back, and now he's gotten Roscoe back. So the two of them take off, and we see Theo and Tracy are chasing the beast of Givaudan, and they track him to the lockers where they find the same message, Damnato Memorai, and I will say that I'm definitely getting into this story of the beast. Definitely, it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes. And they're skeptical about who the beast is underneath, and Theo tells Tracy that it killed close to 500 people, and Theo and Tracy are then stopped by the Dread Doctors, who knock Tracy out. He tells him that his pack isn't enough because his eyes haven't changed, and his eyes should have changed by now. So definitely the Dread Doctors, they're not happy. And just then the beast begins making its way toward them with the head of a victim in its hands, and it lets out a roar, and both it and the Dread Doctors disappear. So basically, it completely disappears, and we don't really know what's going on at this point. I really like that. I like that mysteriousness. And that's something I liked about Theo in this episode is that Theo didn't even know what was going on. Before Theo's pretty much had the upper hand with everything, but this is the first time that even Theo has a bit of a challenge because he doesn't really know what he's up against. He doesn't really know what the beast can do. He just knows it's killed 500 people. It's clear the Dread Doctors want him to go after it, and I think for the first time, this doesn't feel like Theo's been working all of this. It feels like this is the Dread Doctors working, and that they're giving Theo something to do, rather than Theo giving the Dread Doctor something to do, which I think is a lot more interesting, definitely. So one of the skinwalkers helps heal Kira and tells her that she was afraid to use her sword. She leaves the teepee, and Kira's mother walks in. She tells Kira that she will be tested and it won't be easy. It will take days, months, or years before Kira can control her dark side. And Kira's very worried about seeing her friends again, but her mom tells her that if she doesn't control her dark side, she will have more to worry about. And her mother says if she becomes a skinwalker, it's the only thing that's going to keep her alive. She needs to become a skinwalker because she, needs to stay alive. And definitely I thought that was very interesting, just seeing, and I couldn't really tell exactly what was going on with skinwalkers, but this wasn't something where I needed to know what was going on. Just seeing that Kira's having to be put through all this and seeing her mother help her out and really wanting her to succeed. We really want Kira to succeed in this episode, and I definitely like seeing that. And I like that right now the mission with Scott and Stiles is not to save Kira, or it's set up as they want to get the pack back together. That's kind of what it is right now. So Scott and Stiles are traveling in the bucket of a Jeep, and Scott continues to read myths about Damnito Memorai, and he talks about a story of the Demon Tailor, who remains unnamed, and the Demon Tailor becomes a werewolf, which made him an even better kilt. Now, I'm pretty sure at some point we're going to find out who the Demon Tailor really is. Right now, at least, he's unnamed. They haven't given a name, but I'm sure at some point they are going to give a name. We just have to, I guess, figure out who it is at some point. We don't really know who it is now, but we're going to find out definitely very soon. So Liam and Mason are walking in the hallway, but Liam finds it hard to control himself when he sees Theo with Hayden because he doesn't know what's going on there. He doesn't know if Hayden is, really working with Theo or if Theo is controlling her. He doesn't really know what's going on. So obviously it's very hard, but I like that Mason's trying to tell him that he needs to control his anger and he needs to calm down. It's just getting hard, and that's understandable. He really cares about Hayden, and he doesn't know what's going on with her, and he wants to know. So I definitely felt bad for Liam in this scene, definitely. So it's Scott's turn to drive, and he asks Stiles if he still isn't talking to Malia, and Stiles says he isn't talking to, that she isn't talking to anyone, and Scott says that he thinks it's because she found her mother, the Desert Wolf, and if you guys remember, we had that one really, I think, out of place scene last week where we briefly saw Malia and Brayden, and then they kind of just cut away from it. Well, we focus a lot more on in this episode, and he tells Stiles how she found her mother, and he also reveals that Brayden was with her when he went to see her, and Scott tells Stiles that he's worried that Malia's gonna kill her mother, and obviously that's not gonna be a good thing if she does that. So they're very worried about that, and they've run out of gas because Stiles didn't fix the gas gauge, and now they're stranded, so basically they don't really know what to do. They're just out in the middle of nowhere right now, and now they're stranded. I like that even though Stiles fixed Roscoe still is not working. I mean, this car is shit. Stiles needs to get a new Jeep. He really does. So Liam and Hayden are then paired up as partners for a project, but in another class, we also see that Mason and Corey are paired up. It's clear that Mason and Corey have a lot going on, and in another class, a teacher notices that Scott, Stiles, and Lydia are missing, and Theo tells her that Lydia won't be in for a while due to medical issues, and he said in a very creepy way, he's like, she won't be back for a while. I mean, just the way he said that, like, very shady, definitely very shady. It's just, that's Teen Wolf logic for you. Malia's actually in Beacon Hills and walks past the classroom where Theo notices her, and I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna try to manipulate her, definitely. And I'm sure that Theo still wants this plan to go through. He wants everyone to be against Scott, he wants that to happen, and I'm pretty sure he'll do whatever he can to make sure that does happen, and I think part of that is getting Malia involved. I mean, it did seem like Malia and Theo were going to start something, but it's clear that Malia did not give in to Theo's tricks because she's just smarter than that. So we still don't know if she's going to. I don't think she's going to, but it's clear that Theo still has his eye on possibly turning her against her pack. Definitely, it seems like that's what he wants to do. So Lydia's walking through Eichen House and over broken glass from a cell. Meredith asks her if she knew how Valak was able to escape, and she says that Valak used her voice as a weapon, and that Lydia needs to use her own voice as one. And again, I like seeing these scenes of Meredith and Lydia training. I think they're some of the strongest scenes coming out of this season, definitely. And plus, we know that Lydia is going to become this badass by the end of the season because, again, going back to episode 1, we saw her really cool fighting skills, and we definitely need to get to that very soon. I feel like Meredith is going to be the one to train her on that. And it's about time that Lydia knows how to use her voice as a weapon because, like I've said, it's kind of like the canary cry, and I definitely feel like that's where we're going with this. That's definitely going to be like the canary cry, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they do that. So Mason and Corey, they're partners in the same class with Liam and Hayden and Liam. There's a lot going on there. Hayden asks Liam if he's going to talk to her, and he missed not liking the fact that she's talking to Theo. She reminds him that Theo brought her back, and the teacher is obviously interrupting them because they're not focusing on the project, but there's a lot going on there. There's definitely a lot going on. It's very awkward right now. So after class, Corey asks Mason about going out again, but Mason is very hesitant. He doesn't really know if he wants to go out with Corey. He doesn't know if it's a good thing to do because Corey's in Theo's pack, and he doesn't, But what Corey tells Mason is very interesting here, and this is where I'm like, you know what? This could actually go in a very different way than I think it's gonna go. And what I mean is the Chimera storyline. I feel like there's definitely more going on here, and I feel like we really understood Theo's point of view in this episode. Because Corey tells Mason that there are no good guys or bad guys and that they can all die, and it's, pretty soon it's not going to be good guys versus bad guys, it's going to be dead versus surviving. So basically he's saying that, in order for you to survive, you kind of need to join the Chimeras or else you're going to die. So Corey asks Mason to stay with him and kisses him, and Corey tells Mason that they're going to be okay and says Theo's looking for the beast. And Mason is still hesitant if he wants to join their side, but I feel like Corey's going to try to get Mason to join their side. And I kind of predicted that this was going to happen, that Mason was going to get himself involved in this. And definitely, if this turns out to be something where Mason gets on this side and tries to maybe convince Liam that they are the good guys, that could definitely be very interesting to see where that goes. And just seeing Corey's point of view, I feel like it definitely does make sense. I mean, the Beast seems to be more powerful than Theo and the Dread Doctors combined. So if, the Chimeras are facing the Beast, then the Chimeras are no longer the bad guys. They're surviving over the Beast that I feel could take down Scott and his pack, because the Chimeras definitely, we've seen, are much more advanced than Scott and his pack. They definitely are. So we'll have to see what happens with that, because that definitely is going to be interesting. So, Kira's mom then notices that she's healed quickly, and Kira asks her if she really is going to leave her with the skinwalkers, and her mom tells her that she would if she could save her life, and Kira asks her what happens if she fails, and her mother replies, "Don't fail." She leaves the teepee with her sword as she begins her test, and the skinwalkers are all perched looking down on her, and basically Kira doesn't really know what she's gonna do here. She knows she has to fight these skinwalkers, but she doesn't really know what she's up against, so she's kind of just being, thrown into this without really any knowledge of what she's doing, but I like seeing that. I like seeing Kira kind of vulnerable. I definitely like seeing that here. So Scott and Stiles reach a gas station in the desert, but it's locked. Scott shakes off the change. Stiles leaves $20 for the gas. They fill up the gas can quietly, and Stiles says that there was one metal pin attached to the scaffold. He revisits the accident and tells Scott that the way he looked at him that night made him feel that he couldn't tell him. And Scott says he knows the difference and he knows what self-defense is. And Lydia's still strolling through Eichen House and begins knocking books down the library to find that all of the initials have been removed. And Meredith tells her that she needs to be fearless, and then Lydia sees a vision of Theo ripping out Meredith's throat and screams, and in reality, the doctors are overseeing Lydia. They're alerted by what they thought was a scream. Because as we know, this isn't actually happening. This is all in Lydia's head, and I feel like they definitely made that more apparent here, because I couldn't tell last week if Lydia was actually seeing Meredith or if she was just picturing her. And at this point, I feel like she's imagining her. I feel like this is in her head. This is how she feels in this comatose state, and definitely very interesting seeing what's going to happen next week when I think she's going to be pulled out of it, because it seems like next week we're going to focus on pulling Lydia out of this coma. So, Stiles and Scott see an unusual lightning storm ahead. They speed over to find out what it is. Kira's in the center of the storm, and the darkness is all around her. She draws her sword and gets ready for battle. Kira's attacked by what looks like the Oni, but manages to fight them off each time. And Scott and Stiles realize if they had kept talking the night, they would have figured everything out then. And I like that they're basically figuring out that they should have just talked this over, and that basically Theo just kind of screwed them over. He made them think that they couldn't talk about this, and I thought this was good. This was definitely the satisfying conclusion I wanted to this. I wanted this to be, last week it just kind of seemed kind of simple. Oh, they're back together. They're friends again. It just seemed, it seemed kind of rushed. But here, this really made sense. Scott said he didn't want it to happen like this. He meant that one of them would get too much blood on their hands. Scott thought it should have been him, but it was Stiles. They decide to leave, but Scott notices the light from Kira's sword, and right away, Scott's seeing, oh shit, this is where Kira is. And again, I like that they were not initially looking for Kira, that they just happened to end up where Kira was. So Kira continues her test, and when she slices the Oni, she's hurt. She was fighting herself, but is no longer scared to use the sword. She stands up after a horrible slash to the stomach, and faces her dark side. The Kitsune rises out of Kira, and when her mother gets out of the car, she sees no sign of her daughter, and basically she doesn't know where she went. So Malia's looking for a file when Theo interrupts her, and he tells her that Malia probably won't find out who she's looking for, and he tells her he wonders what Scott is going to do when he finds out it's her fault, and Malia opens up a can of whoop ass on Theo and hurts him pretty bad, but he isn't phased, and she doesn't try to hurt him. And she doesn't try to kill him, and Theo tells Malia that he can help her find Deaton and the Desert Wolf through the Dread Doctors. He knows how they found everyone, and it's clear that her number one thing right now, she doesn't care about this whole bees situation. What she cares about is finding her mother and rescuing Deaton. That's what matters to her, because obviously she knows her mother's after her. She knows her mother kidnapped Deaton, and it's clear that Theo has a different agenda, and definitely I think Malia is going to get herself involved in something that she shouldn't be getting herself involved in, and definitely this could end up really bad for her potentially. We'll have to see what happens with that, because I'm honestly really worried about Malia in this situation. I don't know what's going to happen, but it does not seem good for her, definitely. So Kira emerges from the mountains and the darkness is fade away. She's holding the Oni mask in her hand and tells her mother that she won. She passed the test, but the skinwalkers tell her that it wasn't her that passed, it was actually the fox that did all of it. And they tell her that she wields the sword, but the fox wields her. They tell her she has no control and that she has to stay and become one of them. And basically, Liam is then sitting alone the stairs when Hayden approaches him and asks what he's doing. He tells her that he's trying not to get involved, and Hayden tells Liam that Scott can't protect them like Theo can. And she tells Liam that she can't die again because her sister couldn't handle it. And Liam tells Hayden that it would ruin him too, and they share another kiss. And again, it very much seems like Hayden has this trust in Theo that she just doesn't have in Scott. And it makes sense. Theo was the one that's brought her back to life, and he's her alpha. That's her alpha. That's the person that she's gonna stay loyal to, and she's not gonna stay loyal to Scott. She didn't really have much of a relationship with Scott. She kind of was just with Scott because Liam was with Scott, but since she was now now that she's with Theo, she has this newfound trust in Theo, and this could end up either really good or really bad for her, but we'll have to see what happens here. Definitely seems like Liam's not trying to pull her out of it, and I kind of feel like at this point, Liam kind of is starting to understand Theo, that they see Theo as their alpha, they see Theo as someone that's going to protect them, and yeah, he would. I mean, I think Theo's main thing is that he wants a pack, and he will do anything to protect his pack, because obviously he wants to face against... I don't think Scott's the main enemy. I think the Beast is the main enemy right now, so we'll have to see what happens with that, because that definitely is going to be interesting. The Skinwalkers are trying to draw Kira to them, but her mother doesn't allow it, and her mother tells the Skinwalkers that if they want her, they will have to go through her. Scott and Kira then step in to help, but they all end up leaving in Roscoe, and Scott and Kira right away are back together, But something I liked about this scene, the reason it didn't feel rushed to me is because Kira never left Scott. They didn't, she didn't want to break up with him. She still had those feelings for him. So when if these two are all of a sudden back together, I'm fine with that because throughout the episode she was complaining about Scott. She was missing Scott, and it's clear that she wants to be with Scott. So Scott and Kira are kissing. She's extremely happy they came back for her. But then we get to the ending of this episode because this was definitely very interesting. Kira wakes Scott up. Liam and Mason greet him. They tell Scott that Theo's looking for a blind alpha Deucallion, and that's how the episode ends. So why is he looking for Deucallion? Why is Deucallion suddenly back in the picture? I'm not really sure, but now that we had Gerard back, now we have Deucallion back. It really seems like at this point we're just trying to get back old characters, but there has to be a reason as to why Theo wants Deucallion. He can't just randomly want Deucallion. There has to be a reason as to why. What it is, I don't really know, but there definitely is a reason as to why he wants Deucallion. We'll have to see what that is. I just don't really know what that is yet. Definitely, it's going to be very interesting. Um, Scott and Kira back together, like I said, I don't have a problem with this. I think that it's fine that they're back together. It makes sense. Obviously, like I said, Kira wanted to be with Scott, so it makes sense why they're back together. Um, Malia and Theo. It seems like Theo's trying to get trust in Malia and is trying to prove that she can trust him, but does Theo have a different agenda than Malia? I mean, the fact that he's looking for Deucallion, what is he really trying to do here? Malia is obviously concerned about the Desert Wolf, but is that what Theo is concerned in, or is he going to do something else? We'll have to see. Definitely it's going to be interesting. As far as Mason, like I said, I really feel he's on this path where he could honestly be swept into Theo's pack and basically, start to think that maybe Theo is just more loyal than Scott. I'm not really sure, but I feel like very slowly we're starting to understand why this pack is staying with Theo. They feel he's loyal. He's their alpha. They're not going to get away from him. He trusts all of them and he's going to stay loyal to them. So that's why they're going to stay with him, and I think it definitely is going to be interesting to see what happens with that. Hayden, at this point, it seems legit that she is with Theo, so we'll have to see what happens with that. Definitely, it's going to be interesting. Um, it seems like right away Kira's going to try to get involved next week. Let's talk about this whole situation that's going on with the Demon Tailor. Who is the Demon Tailor? We don't know who that is yet. We'll have to find out who that is. And then it seems like next week, though, the main thing is pulling Lydia out of this coma. What is going to happen when she comes out of it? I feel like she's going to be way different when she comes out of it. We'll have to see what happens with that. But overall, guys, I really love this episode. I thought this was definitely one of the strongest of the season. Let me know what you guys saw of this episode. And we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for my trailer reaction to Suicide Squad. I know it's taking me a while for me to react to it, but I finally did react to it, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.